I'm not a hero. I'm not a villain either. I'm just a guy who believed love meant sacrifice. I used to think that was enough. Ethan, you're too hard on yourself, Lily always said. You're good. You care. I believed her. I wanted a quiet life, steady work, maybe a small house someday. We'll get there, I told her one night. I promise. She smiled and said, as long as we're together. Those words still echo in my head now. The night everything changed, Lily was shaking in my arms. Ryan's in real trouble, she whispered. They're saying assault, Ethan. He could be inside for years. I asked what really happened. She looked away. He messed up. He didn't mean it. I felt my chest tighten. Lily, this is serious. She cried harder. He's my brother. I can't lose him. I held her and said, we'll figure something out. Even then, my stomach felt wrong. A week later, we visited Ryan. The glass between us felt thick and cold. Bro, I swear I'll change, Ryan said, pressing his palm to the glass. I just need one chance. I asked him, why should I believe you? He swallowed. Because I'm family. Lily grabbed my arm. Please, Ethan. Her voice cracked. I nodded, even though doubt screamed inside me. I'll see what I can do, I said. Ryan smiled like he'd already won. That night, Lily sat across from me at the kitchen table. There's bail, she said quietly, and a lawyer. I laughed once. We don't have that kind of money. She slid closer. You have good credit. I stared at her. You wanted to take a loan? She whispered, just until he's out. We'll pay it back together. I asked, what if we can't? She looked straight at me. I trust you. Love made me stupid. I couldn't sleep. My head kept asking questions my heart didn't want to answer. Am I ruining my life? I muttered. Lily woke and said, what? I replied, nothing. She touched my face. You're saving my family. I closed my eyes. That's what love is, right? She kissed me and said, yes. I didn't notice how fast she said it. The bank smelled like old paper and coffee. Mr. Harris sat across from me, flipping through forms. Large personal loan, he said. This is a heavy burden. I replied, I can handle it. He looked at me over his glasses. You're young. One mistake can follow you for years. I laughed nervously. It's not a mistake. He paused. Who are you doing this for? I said family. He nodded slowly, like he didn't believe me. He slid the contract toward me. Read everything, he said. Lily squeezed my hand under the desk. We don't have time, she whispered. I scanned a few lines. Numbers blurred together. Interest rates. Penalties. You understand this is solely your responsibility, Mr. Harris said. I answered yes. My voice sounded strong. Inside, it wasn't. He added, if they disappear, you still pay. I froze. Lily said quickly, we won't. I picked up the pen. My hand shook. Ethan, Mr. Harris said softly, love shouldn't cost your future. I smiled. It won't. Lily kissed my cheek. Thank you, she whispered. I signed my name. Each letter felt heavier than the last. When it was done, Mr. Harris stamped the paper and said, I hope this works out. I stood up and said it will. I needed that to be true. Outside, Lily hugged me. You saved us, she said. I replied, we saved each other. She didn't correct me. As we walked away, my phone buzzed with a loan alert. The number scared me, but I shoved the fear down. This is just the start, I told myself. I believed I was building a future. I didn't know I had just signed the beginning of the end. The guard said, you have 10 minutes. I nodded and sat down across from Ryan. The glass felt thicker this time. Ryan smiled and said, man, I heard what you did. I answered, you mean the loan? He looked away and said, I appreciate it. Lily squeezed my hand and whispered, see, he's grateful. I wanted to believe that. I asked Ryan, so what really happened that night? He shrugged. Wrong place, wrong people. My chest tightened. That's not an answer. He sighed. I messed up, okay? Lily said quickly, Ethan, please. Ryan leaned closer to the glass. I swear I'll change when I get out, he said. No more fights. No more trouble. I asked, you promise? He nodded fast. On my life. Lily smiled like that settled everything. She whispered, we can finally plan our future. I whispered back, after this is over. Inside my head, a voice asked why Ryan couldn't look at me when he promised. I ignored it. I always did. As we stood to leave, A man in a gray jacket stopped me. "Ethan Cole," he asked. I said, "Yes." He flashed a badge. "Detective Moore." Lily stiffened. He said calmly, "Just wanted to say thank you for cooperating." I frowned. "Cooperating with what?" He smiled thinly. "Your girlfriend's brother has a complicated file." I said, "He's already paying for his mistake." Moore replied, "People like him rarely make just one." Lily pulled me away and hissed, "Ignore him." I nodded, even though my stomach dropped. On the drive home, Lily said, "That detective was rude." I answered, "He sounded concerned." She snapped, "He doesn't know Ryan." I said, "Do we?" She went quiet. I added, "I'm just tired." She said softly, "Everything will be better soon." I told myself she was right. Doubt felt dangerous. I started picking up overtime shifts. My boss asked, "You sure you want more hours?" I said, "I need them." He shrugged. "Your call." I skipped lunches. I drank cheap coffee and told myself hunger was temporary. Lily texted less. When I asked, "Are you okay?" she replied, "Just stressed." I said, "We all are." She didn't answer. One night I said, "You're always on your phone." She laughed. "You're imagining things." I asked, "Who are you texting?" She said, "Friends." I nodded. "About what?" She replied, "Life." I wanted to ask more, but fear stopped me. If I pushed, something might break. A week later, Detective Moore showed up at my job. He said, "You look tired." I said, "I'm fine." He asked, "Is Ryan staying out of trouble inside?" I snapped, "Why do you care?" He replied, "Because people don't change just because someone else pays their bill." I said, "He will." Moore studied me. "Hope is cheap," he said. "Reality is expensive." I walked away before he could say more. That night, Lily lay beside me, facing away. I said, "Talk to me." She replied, "I can't right now." I whispered, "I'm doing everything I can." She said, "I know." Her voice sounded far. I stared at the ceiling and thought about the loan, the warnings, the way Ryan smiled. My chest hurt. I told myself this was normal. Stress, pressure, love being tested. "It'll pass," I muttered. I believed that if I just held on longer, everything would make sense. Admitting doubt meant admitting I might have destroyed my own life. I wasn't ready for that. So I chose hope, even when it started to feel like a lie. I stood outside the jail and rubbed my hands together. "He should be out any minute," Lily said. I nodded. "Yeah, any minute." My stomach felt tight. Lily kept checking the door, then her phone. I said, "You nervous?" She smiled. "Just excited." I wanted to feel the same. When the door finally opened, Ryan stepped out and stretched like the sun belonged to him. Lily ran forward and wrapped her arms around him. "You're free," she cried. I stayed where I was, clapping once. Ryan laughed. "Feels good." He hugged Lily longer than I expected. I told myself I was imagining things. Ryan looked at me and said, "Hey, man." I said, "Welcome back." He slapped my shoulder. "Couldn't have done it without you." Lily beamed. "I told you everything would work out." I smiled, even though something in my chest sank. On the drive, Ryan talked nonstop. "I'm starting fresh," he said. "No more stupid moves." I asked, "What's the plan?" He grinned. "Whatever comes." Lily laughed. "See? He's changed." I nodded. "I hope so." We went to a small diner near the highway. The waitress said, "What'll it be?" Ryan said, "Everything." Lily laughed again. Ryan leaned back and said, "First thing I'm doing is living." I said, "Living smart." He raised his hands. "Relax." I learned my lesson. His eyes kept drifting to Lily. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did. Halfway through the meal, Ryan said, "Thanks again, Ethan." I replied, "Just don't make me regret it." He smiled. "You won't." Lily reached for my hand. "This is the start of our real life," she said. I squeezed back. "Yeah, ours." Ryan watched us with a strange look. I told myself it meant nothing. That night, Ryan crashed on a friend's couch. Lily and I went home. She didn't hum like she used to. She kicked off her shoes and said, "I'm exhausted." I said, "Big day." She nodded. "I need some space tonight." I blinked. "Space." She said, "Just to think." I forced a smile. "Sure." She kissed my cheek. "Thank you for understanding." I said, "Always." She took her pillow to the couch. I lay in bed staring at the wall. My phone stayed quiet. I told myself she needed rest. I told myself tomorrow would feel normal again. I whispered, "Everything's fine." Saying it out loud didn't help. I woke up before my alarm. The bed beside me was still empty. I checked my phone. No messages. I texted, "You okay?" Nothing. I waited an hour. I texted again. "Did you sleep all right?" Silence pressed against my chest. I walked to the living room. The couch was empty. Lily's shoes were gone. I called her. Straight to voicemail. "Hey," I said, trying to sound calm. "Call me back." I sat down and rubbed my face. My thoughts raced. She just went for a walk. She needed air. I checked the time. It was almost noon. I called again. Nothing. I paced the apartment. Her jacket was missing. I opened her closet. Some of her clothes were gone. "No," I whispered. I grabbed my keys and went outside. I drove past the diner, past Ryan's friend's place. Ryan's car wasn't there. My heart started pounding. I called Ryan. He answered on the fourth ring. "What's up?" he said. I asked, "Have you seen Lily?" He paused. "No," I said. "Are you sure?" He replied, "Why would she be with me?" I swallowed. "She didn't come home." He said, "Maybe she needed time." I hung up without answering. I sat in my car and stared at the steering wheel. Every warning I ignored lined up in my head. Lily running to him. Her distant voice. The space she needed. My phone buzzed. I grabbed it. It wasn't her. It was a bank alert reminding me of my loan balance. I laughed once, sharp and hollow. I drove home and sat on the floor. The apartment felt too quiet. I checked her social media. No posts. No clues. I whispered her name. "Lily." My chest hurt. I told myself she'd walk through the door any second and laugh at my panic. The sun started to set. She didn't come back. I sat alone and finally said the truth I'd been avoiding. She didn't come home. Saying it broke something inside me. I didn't know it then, but this was the moment everything I believed began to fall apart. I woke up reaching for Lily, and my hand hit cold sheets. "Lily," I said. No answer. I sat up and looked around. Her side of the closet was empty. Drawers were pulled open. My chest tightened. I grabbed my phone and called her. Straight to voicemail. "Hey," I said, forcing calm. "Call me back." I hung up and checked the bathroom. Her toothbrush was gone. My heart started pounding. I called again. Nothing. I opened the nightstand. Her charger was missing. "No," I whispered. I checked the kitchen. Her favorite mug was gone. I leaned on the counter and tried to breathe. "You're overreacting," I told myself. I grabbed my keys and drove to the bank like my life depended on it, because it did. At the counter, the teller smiled. "How can I help you?" I said, "I need my account balance." She typed and frowned. "Which account?" I said, "The joint savings." She turned the screen toward me. "It's empty." My ears rang. "That's not possible," she said. "The withdrawal cleared this morning." I asked who authorized it. She said both account holders. My knees felt weak. "That's everything," I said. She nodded. "Yes." I walked outside shaking. My phone buzzed. Hope flared. It wasn't Lily. It was Ryan. One text. "We're gone. Don't look for us." I stared at the screen. "Together," I said out loud. People passed me like nothing happened. I replayed every ignored sign. Lily running to him. Her distance. My silence. I called Ryan. He didn't answer. I texted Lily. "Please." No reply. Shame burned my throat. Rage followed fast. "I trusted you," I whispered. I drove home on autopilot. The apartment felt like a lie. Marcus called as I sat on the couch. "You sound like hell," he said. I said, "She took everything." He paused. "Who?" I said, "Lily. With her brother." Marcus swore. "I warned you." I snapped, "Don't." He said, "Ethan, she used you." I covered my face. "Stop." Marcus came over an hour later. He looked around and said, "She really cleared you out." I nodded. "The loan," I said. "It's all on me." He sat down. "Man, that's brutal." I asked, "How did I miss it?" He said, "Because you wanted to." We sat in silence. My phone buzzed with repayment notices. I stared at them until my eyes burned. "I wasn't just betrayed," I said. Marcus replied, "You were played." I nodded slowly. "Yeah," I said. "I was." The phone rang at 6 in the morning. I answered and heard, "This is a debt collection attempt." I hung up. It rang again. "Mr. Cole, we need to discuss your balance." I said, "I don't have anything to say." The voice replied, "You don't have a choice." I blocked the number. Another call came in, then another. I threw the phone on the bed and stared at the ceiling. "This isn't real," I said. It was. By noon, there was a notice on my door. I read it twice. Final warning. I laughed and said, "Of course." Marcus came over and said, "Pack a bag." I asked what. He said, "You're done here." I looked around the apartment. "I built this life." He replied, "She burned it." I grabbed clothes and stuffed them into a backpack. My hands shook the whole time. On Marcus's couch, I stared at the wall. "I feel stupid," I said. He answered, "You were in love." I said, "That's worse." He sighed, "Don't turn this inward." I snapped, "Where else should it go?" He didn't answer. That night, I made a fake account. I searched Lily's name. Her profile popped up. New picture. She was smiling. Ryan stood beside her, arm around her waist. I whispered, "How?" Marcus said, "Stop looking." I said, "I can't." I scrolled. Beach photos. Laughing captions. "Fresh start," she wrote. I felt sick. "I still miss her," I said. Marcus replied, "That doesn't make you weak." I said, "It feels like it." Work didn't care that my life fell apart. I showed up late. Nina asked quietly, "Are you okay?" I shrugged. "Fine." She said, "You don't look fine." I snapped. I said, "I'm fine." She nodded. "Okay." Later, she handed me a coffee. "No charge," she said. I looked at her. "Why?" She replied, "You look like you need it." I said, "Thanks." We sat during break. She asked, "Rough breakup?" I laughed once. "More like a crash." She said, "You don't have to explain." I did anyway. I trusted the wrong people. She listened without interrupting. I said, "I did this to myself." She replied, "Maybe you helped, but you didn't deserve it." I stared at the floor. I keep replaying it. She said, "That's how pain survives." A letter arrived that night. I opened it slowly. Lawsuit threat. My name in bold. I showed Marcus. He said, "This is bad." I nodded. "I know." I sat down and said, "What if I just stop trying?" Marcus said, "Don't." I whispered, "I'm tired." I lay awake asking myself one question. Do I fight back or walk away? I didn't have an answer yet. I just knew I was still breathing. And somehow, that had to mean something. I woke up before my alarm and said out loud, "I can't stay like this." Marcus looked over from the kitchen and said, "That's a start." I sat up and said, "I'm getting another job." He nodded. "Good." I added, "No more spiraling." He replied, "Also good." I didn't feel strong, but I felt decided, and that mattered. At work, Nina said, "You look different." I asked, "Worse?" She smiled slightly. "Focused." I said, "I'm trying to fix things." She replied, "Then let's start with numbers." We sat after shift, and she spread papers out. "Income, debts, deadlines," she said. I sighed. "It looks ugly." She answered, "Ugly can be organized." I laughed quietly. Marcus pushed me hard. "Stop thinking about them," he said. I snapped. "Easy for you." He leaned forward. "Anger makes you sloppy." I clenched my jaw. "What should I feel?" He said, "Smart." That stuck. I worked nights, stacking boxes. My back hurt. My hands blistered. I told myself pain meant progress. Nina checked on me daily. "Eat," she said. "Sleep," she said. "Don't quit," she said. I followed orders because I didn't trust my instincts anymore. One night, Detective Moore called. "Ethan," he said, "we need to talk." I asked about Ryan. He replied, "Yes." I said, "I'm done helping." He said, "Good." We met for coffee. He slid a file toward me. "Your loan shows unusual transfers." I frowned. "Meaning?" He said, "Ryan moved money after release." My chest tightened. "That violates parole." Moore nodded. "Truth has consequences." I didn't feel happy. I felt sick. "I don't want revenge," I said. Moore replied, "You're not getting it." I asked, "Then what is this?" He answered, "Justice doesn't need emotion." That night, I sat alone and whispered, "Why do I want them to hurt?" The answer scared me. I didn't like it. I closed my eyes and said, "I choose control." For the first time, I believed it. My phone rang while I was stacking boxes at the night job. I wiped my hands and answered. Marcus said, "Sit down." I asked why. He replied, "Ryan got arrested again." I closed my eyes. "For what?" Marcus said, "Parole violation." "Fraud." I let out a slow breath. Okay. Marcus paused. That's it. I said, yeah. My voice sounded steady. Inside, everything went quiet instead of loud. An hour later, Lily called. I almost didn't answer. I did. She cried my name. Ethan, please. I said, why are you calling? She sobbed. Everything's falling apart. I leaned against the wall. Funny how that works. She said, I'm sorry. I asked for what part? She choked. For using you. That word landed heavy. I stayed silent. She kept talking. Ryan lied to me too. I said, you watched me drown. She whispered, I didn't think you'd sink this far. I replied, neither did I. She cried harder. Can you help me? I asked like before. She said, I'll do anything. I remember the bank office, the pen, the warning. I said nothing. A letter came the next day. Lawsuit notice. Ryan named as co-conspirator. I stared at it. Nina asked, is this what you expected? I said, no. She asked, are you okay? I nodded. I'm calm. She studied me. That's different. Lily texted nonstop. Please answer. I'm scared. I need you. Each message felt like an echo from another life. Marcus said, don't respond. I asked, does that make me cruel? He said, it makes you done. Lily finally sent a voice message. I ruined everything, she cried. Ryan's blaming me. I listened once. I didn't replay it. My chest didn't burn. It felt empty instead. I realized something scared me more than anger. I didn't care the way I used to. Detective Moore called. This is moving fast, he said. I replied, I figured. He added, your cooperation helped. I said, I didn't cooperate. He answered, you didn't interfere. That felt closer to the truth. Lily showed up at Marcus's place that night. Marcus looked at me. Your call. I opened the door. She looked smaller. I don't have anywhere else, she said. I asked, why come here? She said, because you're the only one who ever protected me. I stepped aside, but didn't touch her. She sat and cried. I made the worst mistake of my life. I said, you made a choice. She looked up. Help me fix it. I shook my head slowly. I already paid. She whispered, please. My heart screamed. My mouth stayed closed. After she left, I sat alone. I didn't feel victorious. I felt finished. Karma didn't need my help. It arrived on its own. I met Lily at a quiet cafe near the courthouse. I got there early and told myself, stay calm. When she walked in, I barely recognized her. She looked thinner. Her eyes avoided mine. She sat down and said, thank you for coming. I replied, say what you need to say. She swallowed hard. I'm scared. I nodded. I know. She wrapped her hands around a cold cup. Ryan might go away for a long time. I said, that's his mess. She flinched. I know. She looked up and whispered, I ruined us. I didn't answer. She said, I thought I loved you. I waited. She took a breath. I love feeling safe. That hurt more than yelling would have. She said, you made things stable. I asked, and him. She hesitated. He made things feel familiar. I leaned back. So, I was security? She nodded slowly. I didn't mean to use you. I said, intent doesn't change damage. She started crying. I hate myself for it. I watched her cry without moving. She said, say something. I replied, I'm listening. She wiped her face. I lied. I planned it. I told Ryan about the account. The words landed heavy. I asked, did you ever think about me? She whispered, not enough. Silence stretched between us. She said, can you forgive me? I took a long breath. No, she looked shattered. I continued, but I'm not angry anymore. She frowned. What does that mean? I said, it means I'm done bleeding. She leaned forward. I'd do anything to fix this. I shook my head. There's nothing left to fix. She asked, do you hate me? I thought for a moment. I don't feel anything. Tears ran again. That's worse. I said, maybe, but it's honest. She whispered, I lost you. I stood up. You gave me up. She reached for my hand and stopped herself. Is this really goodbye? I said yes. She nodded like she understood. I walked out without shouting. My chest felt light. I realized closure wasn't winning. It was walking away whole. Time didn't heal anything by itself. I did. That thought hit me while I carried my last box into my new apartment. Marcus said, it's small. I replied, it's mine. He smiled. You earned this. I set the box down and said, I didn't steal it. I didn't beg for it. I didn't destroy anyone to get it. Marcus nodded. That matters. The first night alone felt strange. I sat on the floor and said out loud, I'm safe. No one argued back. The quiet didn't scare me anymore. Nina called and asked, Did you move in? I said, yeah. She replied, How does it feel? I thought for a moment. Clean. She laughed softly. That's a good word. We took things slow. Too slow for some people. Nina said, I don't want to rush you. I answered, I don't want to disappear into someone again. She nodded. Boundaries. I said, exactly. We talked more than we touched. When she reached for my hand, she asked first. I said yes because I wanted to, not because I needed to. One afternoon, Marcus said, Ryan got sentenced. I asked how long. He said enough. I felt nothing sharp, just distance. And Lily? I asked. Marcus replied, She left town. I nodded. Figures. No drama. No closure speech. Just absence. Nina asked me, Do you ever miss her? I said, I miss who I thought she was. She replied, That's honest. I said, I don't miss the version of me who stayed. Nina smiled. You learned. I paid another loan installment and stared at the receipt. Almost done, I said. Nina replied, Proud of you. I believed her. More importantly, I believed myself. One night, I stood by the window and said, I survived. The word felt right. I wasn't angry. I wasn't broken. I was changed. And for the first time, that felt like a win. I stood in my small apartment and held the final loan receipt. Done, I whispered. The words sounded foreign in my mouth, heavy but freeing. Nina walked in, carrying coffee. You're smiling, she said. I replied, I think I finally can. She asked, after all this? I shrugged. After everything. I set the receipt on the counter. It feels like more than money, I said. Nina asked, what does it feel like? I answered freedom and truth. She tilted her head. Truth, I said. I spent years living a lie, believing love meant sacrifice without limits. I was wrong. I poured a cup of coffee and stared out the window. I used to think I needed them to define me, I said. Lily, Ryan, even Marcus sometimes. I thought my worth was tied to them, but it isn't. Nina smiled softly. You figured that out? I said. I'm figuring it every day. I sat down and spoke aloud, almost like you're here with me. Betrayal didn't destroy me. It built me. Every sleepless night, every panic attack, every regret, it shaped me into someone stronger, someone who can choose himself. I sipped my coffee and added, I don't hate them. I don't need to forgive them. I just let go. Nina asked, Are you lonely? I shook my head. Alone, yes. Lonely, no. There's a difference. She nodded. A good one. I said, It's like standing on solid ground after being swept by a storm. I can see clearly now. I went through my apartment, touching the shelves I arranged myself, the books I bought with my own money, the small desk I earned with late shifts and overtime. I whispered, Everything here is mine. No one else's mistakes, lies, or promises. Mine. The silence felt full, comforting. I reflected. For years I thought love required endless sacrifice. I thought my life was over because I gave too much. I laughed quietly. Turns out, the life I lost wasn't real. The lie was, and I survived it. I walked to the window again. I don't need a rescue. I don't need apologies. I only need me. Nina asked, And are you happy? I said, Not perfect, not finished, but free. And that's enough. I turned back to my apartment. Everything here reflected my effort, my choices, my control. I lost the lie, I said, and in losing it, I finally found myself. I poured another cup of coffee. The sunlight touched the floor. I smiled. I didn't feel broken. I felt whole. For the first time, I whispered, I choose me. The world outside could crash. People could lie, betray, vanish. It didn't matter. I was alive. I was here. I was my own. And I was enough.